There is this group of migrants coming from Honduras headed toward the United States. There are reports the numbers reach 4,000. Do you believe they should be stopped from getting here?
Well, Mexico has put forward the request for the United Nations to assist them in sorting out those who have legitimate fear of return, who have a foundation for potential asylum. I think that's probably a very useful step. We have security at the border. We have a process for addressing migrants when they arrive. What we cannot do is proceed to treat children who arrive in the United States and inflict trauma on them, and treat them as criminals, inflict trauma on them. And even today, the administration is still pursuing a plan to establish internment camps, family internment camps, lock children up behind barbed wire. This is something that's totally unacceptable. We are ashamed of what happened in World War II. We cannot allow this to be recreated. And certainly this fundamental idea that inflicting trauma on children as a political message is an okay thing is not okay. And I think Americans have made that very clear to the administration, but no one there appears to be listening.
You're talking to a certain extent about the child separation policy, which was widely condemned by members of both parties. But is there some way short of, as you put it, inflicting trauma on children, of keeping these people from crossing the border? Is it a goal? Is it a democratic goal? Is it your goal to stop the flow of migrants from countries like Honduras and Guatemala?
We do understand that a lot of the folks who are fleeing drug violence, drug cartels, and the United States is tied up in this, and that it's our demand for drugs that is fueling that drug economy. President Obama worked to have a program to help address the issues in Central America so that those conditions would improve and not fuel this type of migration. I think that's a very, very smart way to proceed. But this administration seems to be uninterested. In fact, they almost want there to be an immigration challenge. They're almost cheering it on because they're looking for some way to create something to frighten the American people during an election. I mean, we should be talking about the things that really frighten the American people, and that's a health care system in which the administration is routinely, in a method after method, undermining and sabotaging its cost effectiveness and inflicting the challenge of pre-existing conditions on the American people that you can't get insurance. So they're running a sideshow for the election. We need to focus on the things that affect Americans' quality of life.
Although, as I've said, I mean, this is an area you have focused on quite a bit, the border and how people are treating there. Is it safe to assume that you do believe that some number of those 4,000 people who want to get here should be allowed into the United States?
You know, I met a young woman from Honduras who had arrived with her 65-day-old infant, Andrea. And she could not get across the border until she proceeded to pretend to wipe windows, wash windows to get across the car bridge down there at McAllen Crossing. And she said, here's the situation. The drug cartel that controls the neighborhood, my family took a loan from them. We couldn't repay it. And so, therefore, they had targeted me and said, when your child is born, you will be shot if this loan hasn't been repaid. They didn't have the money. She was targeted. She fled. She delivered her baby en route to the United States. I think that's somebody who traditionally would have a very strong case for asylum. She has to be able to demonstrate it. And the challenge is that it's very hard to do that. So 4 out of 5 families who argue that they have a good case, that they can't demonstrate it, they don't get into the United States. But we have an established system for addressing this. And immigrants, almost all of us have family histories in which immigrants have been a strong reason we're here, fleeing persecution, fleeing famine. We have to have a certain sense of dignity and decency in recognizing that when people flee persecution, we should greet them with the philosophy of the Statue of Liberty, not treat them as criminals and lock up the children behind barbed wire.
Senator Jeff Merkley, thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John.